If I was to ask you the question, when do you think was the moment on record that Status Quo transitioned from psychedelic pop to the hard rock and boogie that we now know them for? What would you say? I think perhaps the most popular answer would be, well, Down the Dustpipe, because that was the first single to be released by Status Quo in that boogie style. Yeah, that is one thinking, and of course, Tuned to the Music and In My Chair, like these are all songs which are in that style, but they're during a period where the band are experimenting with sort of hard rock and blues. So Mark Kelly's Greasy Spoon is full of that, and in one case, everything could have been performed on one of the previous two albums because of its kind of more poppy nature. You know, it's not the heads down stuff or the bluesy stuff that they were going for or experimenting with at that time. In my opinion, and I would argue that Something's Going On in My Head from the Dog of Two Head album is there's an exact moment in there where it's telling the listener, this is what we do now. This is the transition from this to this. Let me explain. So Something's Going On in My Head was written by Alan Lancaster and starts off with like a bluesy kind of motif. It's kind of fast moving, upbeat, and the kind of motif that they were doing there, it's very similar to like early rock and roll, where they'd have a motif there and then they'd kind of work round it. You know, people like Link Wray made an entire career out of kind of doing these kind of heavy motify things, you know, with like a little riff or a little idea and like just building and building on it. And that is what they do here. And we've got John's rhythm and Alan's bass kind of just driving it along, and we go through the verses, and then as we go into the chorus, we have a slightly different segment there where it goes into more of a muted thing. And I remember seeing on YouTube years ago, it's probably still there, Francis Rossi explaining that, you can do the shuffle thing, but really with the Status Quo sound, the positioning on the fretboard to get that muted sound, as he said, to get the staccato out of it. Otherwise, as he said, you're getting long note. And I think that is the thing with the Quo sound. It's not da, 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 da. Like, it's not like that. It's da, 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 da. And that is what you're getting with Something's Going On in My Head in this chorus section. It goes more kind of like it's heavy, but the guitar isn't like ringing out. And then as you get through that, you have this third section where they are playing the notes like everything's ringing out. It's like they're playing an open chord or something, you know, like I think it's a D and a C, and they're going da 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 da. Like the rhythm changes as well. So you've got John Coghlan going da 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 da, you know, like that. And listening to it, it's very similar in playing style and rhythm and idea to what they were doing in the 60s. It was sort of that type of thing. And with the harmonies there and the way in which the melody is working during that, you know, sort of almost like psychedelic-y stuff that they were doing at that time. It's very reminiscent of that. And then you have this moment where at the end of that section, I think Alan's bass drops a tiny bit and it goes into a muted section of da 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 da, you know. And to me, that is the exact moment. Was almost like, you know, Alan Lancaster wrote something. This is just my opinion. It's like he wrote something that said, this is what we do now, right? This is a message to Pi Records to say, this is what we do. This is what you wanted us to do. This is what we do. And it's so beautiful. It doesn't matter how many times you hear it. it is hairs on the back of the neck, because it's like, whoa, somehow transitioning from these open chords and like this light thing with like these nice harmonies into that da da da. It's like, it's sort of dirty and bluesy, and like, it's not the most like complex thing, but there's just something about the feel that goes into there. And then what you get after that is long solos that are very similar to what they were experimenting with Is It Really Me, Gotta Go Home? You know, where Francis is kind of experimenting with these things. They're not the most complex solos in the world, but you're going, this is what we are. And on that album, they'd already done the opening track, Umlatung, or apologies if it's mispronounced. That as well, you know, had a similar idea, but it was a little bit more structured with the solo. This feels like they're really having like a jam session in the middle of this, going, right, this is what we are now. I love it. I love that track, and I love the way as well that it fades down with that sort of throwbacky 60s thing. You know, I think it's an underrated track, and it's not an album I particularly listen to, but I have heard that song quite a few times. And yeah, to me, that is the moment, dear listener, dear viewer, that I think Quo transition from psychedelic to hard rock and boogie. Let me know your thoughts on the song, on the album, on perhaps your answer to the question in the comments below or via social media, and I will see you again for another episode of the Quo-Cast.